Guys, you've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again. Via Hemp is by far the best edible company out there. We absolutely love them. We use their products all the time. They're our favorite, and if you try them, they'll be your favorite too. They have products all over the edible spectrum. Whether you're looking for products with just CBD in them, or if you're really feeling frisky, some CBD and THC products, they have something for you. Via Hemp products are made in the USA. They use high quality ingredients. And like I've said before, they taste amazing. They taste just like candy. So if you're 21 and up, treat yourself to 15% off and get a free gift with your first order using our code WIFEOFCRIME1 at viahemp.com. Plus, you'll get free shipping on orders over $100. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Promo code WIFEOFCRIME1 for 15% off and free shipping on orders over $100.
Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all, and neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, I absolutely love mafia cases. In New York City in the 80s and 90s, John Gotti was everywhere. He is the most well-known mob boss of our generation. But most people don't know his full story. John Gotti's rise and fall plays out like a Shakespearean tragedy, with a lot of New York swag. This is the takedown of John Gotti and the Gambino crime family. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's Russ, a.k.a. Creepy Crawler, a.k.a. Don't Tell Me What to Do.
Creepy Crawler? What is that?
Well,
That's
it's
creepy.
It's kind of me because, I gotta, scoot around now, kind of like a gorilla on my arms.
Like only when you're off your chair.
Yeah. So creepy, I got to crawl, kind of. So Creepy Crawler is something, I think it's from the 90s, where you, make your own bug toys. They're,
yes, I remember that.
Rubber-ish, and you put them in a little oven.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I don't know why I thought of the Creepy Crawlers.
Did you see a commercial of them or something?
I think so.
Like an old 90s commercial. I love when the old commercials from the 90s pop up, especially the infomercials that are trying to sell you something.
I love the Micro Machine Man.
Ridiculous they were. Oh, yeah, the Micro Machine Man.
Yeah, but he's like, we're going to get these little cars.
He talks so fast. That's so funny.
So I know a lot of people are waiting for input. I spoke about last week about going to the whitest barbecue of all time, where they did a thing like, who's bringing what to the barbecue?
Yes.
And underneath, the first two was, I'm bringing couscous. And the other one was, I'm bringing veggie pizza.
And Russ has never had couscous or heard of it in his life.
It's safe to say there were no ribs. There was no
Well, it wasn't. There was
burgers.
There was no grills. We just had sandwiches.
There was a grill in the area we were at that was not being utilized. I told your dad, I thought you would bring steaks because I see a grill. Mm-hmm. Chuck failed.
Oh,
you had one job, Chuck.
He loves steak.
You had two jobs, Chuck. You brought the drinks. You did bring some alcohol.
He did, yes.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So my review on the couscous and veggie pizza. Mm-hmm. You guys already know pizza is vegetarian already, so.
Well, this isn't. It's not pizza.
Then don't say pizza, because I'll kill you.
It's not a pizza. It's flatbread with ranch and veggies on it.
So I would just like to say Jess is here, and she's looking at me with the eyes. So I would just like to say that food was delicious, and I can't wait to have it again.
Good.
Couscous every day, and I'm giving up on New York pizza. We now found the best pizza.
Good. I'm really glad you liked it.
No sarcasm intended, folks.
So glad you liked it. So we're doing a mafia case this week. What would your mafia name for me be?
Definitely just 2 times, because you always say "huh" all the time now. I was thinking, like, whenever I say something to you, like "huh." So what I should do is not say something the first time. Maybe I should like mumble on purpose, like, and then you're like, "What?" And then I could say what I was actually gonna say, because you're gonna say "what" no matter what.
Okay.
What else could your mafia name be?
Your mafia name would be Russ the Kid, because you act like a kid.
They used to call me man-child at one of my jobs.
Definitely. I mean, Russ the Kid.
But I was in my 20s at that time. What did they want me to do? Go get a 401k? I didn't even know what that was. I was just trying to eat food.
Now you're in your 40s. And
I'm 29.
You got a Call of Duty mini fridge delivered today that is sitting on your video game setup
desk. It's so cool. And it was only $30. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. I saw it and I was like, oh, that's probably like $90. It ain't worth it to me. It was $29.99. And I was like, what?
Yeah, so you and the other 5,000 15-year-olds are enjoying their Call of Duty mini fridge. Yours is just stocked with beer. Well, we were just in New York last week, which was nice. We got to see everybody, all of our friends. It was fun. And we got a lot of kisses on the cheeks.
We did.
A lot of kisses.
Oh.
New York people just kiss each other. It's an Italian thing, and it's a New York thing for sure. In the Bronx, people kiss each other on the cheeks.
Well, it's very rare for a man-on-man cheek kiss. But the thing is, people haven't seen me in a couple years, and they haven't seen me since I got hurt.
Yeah.
So it was a little more affection than normal.
It was.
I gotta.
But it was nice to be back in the Bronx for a little bit.
Yeah, it was cool.
Good.
I mean, the worst part about it is now that I can't go upstairs, and everyone I know has stairs, so I can't really get in anyone's house.
Yeah, so it makes it tough.
Yeah.
But we had a good time. We watched the Knicks with all these New Yorkers. Russ was in his element with his friends watching the Knicks. It was fun. We had a great time.
Hell yeah.
Yo, you want to hear something crazy that I found out?
Of course.
So, last week, after we did the Cleveland kidnappings case, people were messaging me about Ariel Castro's daughters, asking me, like, have you heard about anything about the daughters? What did they think of their father doing this and everything? Well, one of our listeners sent me an article, and the apple does not fall very far from the tree. So Emily Castro, who was the one that was friends with Michelle and Amanda, Emily Castro is now sentenced to 25 years in prison. Forget this. Attempting to murder her 11-month-old daughter by slashing her throat with a knife.
Oh my God, she's like as bad as her dad.
Yes. So she tried to murder her daughter. She slashed her throat with a knife. But luckily her daughter didn't die. Thank God.
What?
Yeah, her daughter didn't die. She was only an 11-month-old baby. And now she's in prison for the next 25 years.
Good.
It's crazy. When I heard
hope the
that,
daughter's okay.
So from what I've read, the daughter is okay. Nothing happened to her, but she was put in jail for 25 years. This happened years ago, though. This wasn't super recent. So she's been in jail for a while now. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she has way more than that because, you know, her father was a complete psychopath. So clearly she got some of that.
Yeah. I hate that, like, talking about her quote unquote disorder, because some people try to use that as a reason they may have done something. You're just a scumbag piece of shit. Bipolar is probably fucking misdiagnosed on a lot of people.
Well, she's definitely a scumbag. She got it from her dad. And when one of our listeners sent me that, it was crazy. I was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, and this is the one that was friends with the people that were locked in the basement.
Yeah, well, she was friends with two of them. So Arlene was friends with the youngest girl, the one that was in middle school still, Gina De Jesus. But Emily, this is Emily that we're talking about, she was friends with Michelle Knight and Amanda Berry, who were older.
I wonder what she has to say about the case. I wonder if she's ever spoken.
I don't know if she's ever spoken about the case. This is all I found out about her, but I just thought it was wild. So this month on the Patreon, we watched and reviewed the HBO documentary Chowchilla. It's about 26 kids in a school bus and their bus driver who all get kidnapped and go missing. And it was pretty crazy. And in our episode, me and Russ definitely went back and forth a little bit. We didn't agree on everything, but it was really good. And I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts about it. If you haven't seen that documentary, it's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy that they find the bus empty and all the kids are gone.
Yeah, really crazy. But it was good. So if you're interested, head over to patreon.com/wifeofcrimepod to check out all of our true crime and chill episodes. And Russ has the patron shout outs.
All right. So when you guys join Patreon, I will shout you out that week. So this week's Patreons are Wendy, Emily, Olivia, Renee, who Mr. Cheeks met on his way back from John Jay. She is a tenderoni girl, according to Mr. Cheeks. Kathy, Becky, Carly, Manda, Tyra, Sim, Russ Vibes Only.
Oh.
Yeah, fuck with you. Paul, Michelle, Jaden, and Jamie.
Yes.
So cheers to you guys. Hold on. I got this dog head 60-minute.
Dogfish head.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. I like the 90-minute better, though.
Yeah.
I feel like and how don't I have a beer sponsor yet?
I don't know.
And
we don't, but we should.
Or if any of you guys have a beer company, hit me up.
Yeah.
So every week I do a review of the week. If you haven't reviewed us yet, you are a slacker and you need to go review us. Go to Apple if you have an iPhone and leave us a review. They say it helps you get recognized. If you're on Spotify, go over there and give us 5 stars.
Yes.
So this week's review is from Debist Fan. Still 5 stars.
Okay.
Got a new phone, so naturally I had to resupport my fave duo. I'm not a phonologist, but I know when a great profiler and an awesome crime storyteller deserves the recognition for their work. My only fear is that you all will drop the podcast when Russ becomes president or opens the DNA shop. Thanks for the joy you both bring to your loyal listeners. Some of this knowledge that I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
Aww.
Like the fact that at some point we are all going to wake up dead. Thanks for keeping it real. Cheers. Hashtag Russ is for us. And hashtag Jess, she's better than the rest.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, so when I'm president, I'll still do the podcast.
You'll still do the podcast from the Oval Office?
I don't want to be president. That's a shitty ass job.
It is.
Who wants to be? You have to be such an egomaniac to even want that
to be
job.
President.
Like all the smart people, there's no way the smartest people want that job. They're like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, the smartest people delegate and have everyone work for them, and they sit home rich because they have the art of delegating.
Yeah.
That's the smart people. They understand that their time is worth a lot of money. So, okay. I am really excited about this week's case. I absolutely love mafia cases. I have had a huge fascination with organized crime and the mafia since I was a kid. I first learned about the mafia when I was a small child. I remember hearing the rumblings and rumors that circulated about an important person in my own family being involved in that world. My great-grandfather and I were extremely close, closer than most greats are with theirs. He never confirmed the rumors to anyone, but he also never denied them. None of us know the whole truth about it. None of us know the involvement he may or may not have had. He was a mysterious man who I just saw as my Pop Joe, but there was definitely more to his story. We laid him to rest in 2007 in his family room of a mausoleum in West Baltimore next to his brother, Frank. I performed his eulogy at his funeral. And it was a beautiful Catholic ceremony, just like he would have wanted it to be. I wrote him a message in Italian that I placed in his hands in his coffin, and he was buried with it.
How did you write it in Italian if you don't know Italian?
I actually wrote it because for years he begged me to learn Italian and I never did, but he bought me tons of books. He bought me an Italian to English dictionary. He bought me tons of resources like every year of my life because he pretty much begged me to learn Italian and I never learned it.
But he spoke English, right?
Oh yeah, he spoke English and Italian and he...
Did he have an accent?
No, it wasn't. He didn't have an accent. He had an American accent. So he always begged me to learn Italian. I never did, and it's literally one of my biggest regrets. But when he died, I wrote him a letter in Italian, and I folded it up and I put it in his hands, and he was buried with it. As a child, I was the little kid who always wanted to be around adults, and they reluctantly let me hang around. Because of this, I learned things early on that I probably wasn't supposed to know. Like the fact that my Pop Joe took many, quote, business trips, although he was retired from the family business. That he got a brand new black Cadillac with red interior every 2 years. And no, it wasn't a lease. He just bought it because he liked it. And the rumor that he once said he could make someone disappear if it needed to happen. I will never know what he was involved in, and I don't care. He was my Pop Joe. He played hide and seek with me. I sat on his lap and watched old movies. He took me for rides in his shiny black caddy and bought me anything I wanted whenever I wanted it.
Damn. What is the favoriteest thing he ever bought you? What is the thing you can remember the most when you think back?
Oh gosh, that's hard.
One thing he bought you?
No, I mean, because he bought me a lot of toys and everything.
But you don't have that like favorite toy, that favorite book?
I have more memories with him of spending time with him than him necessarily buying me things, even though he bought me things all the time. Like, he bought me any toys I wanted, and he spoiled me for sure. But my memories with him are more time spent.
That's better.
Quality stuff, like quality time stuff. So I wear his St. Anthony around my neck because he wore it. And I have his rosary hanging in every home I've lived in as an adult. Those conversations I overheard as a kid just made me more and more curious about what the criminal underworld was and the type of characters who were involved in it. We have done a few episodes about the mafia, and I always look forward to researching these cases. The Italian mafia reigned in America from the 1940s to the 1990s. Over time, it evolved into a powerful criminal syndicate that used extortion, violence, and loyalty to control local economies and silence opposition. When large waves of Italian immigrants came to the United States in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the mafia followed, taking root in cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and even Baltimore. In America, the mafia organized itself into families, running rackets in gambling, loan sharking, labor unions, drugs, and construction. At its peak, the mafia had enormous influence over politics, business, and law enforcement. Over the years, there were bosses that kept a low profile, quietly running their empire from their mansions, and some bosses that were flashy and loud, like Sam Giancana. We spoke about him in the Marilyn Monroe episode. He was friends with celebrities like Frank Sinatra, and even politicians like the Kennedys. Whether a boss was loud or quiet, the results remained the same. The mafia had a gigantic influence on America in many forms. Their influence in politics, labor unions, and law enforcement was not minor, yet these men, with so much influence and importance, we'd think would be more well-known amongst all Americans, but they really aren't. It wasn't until movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, A Bronx Tale, that Americans outside of New York City, or people associated with these men, even knew of not only their existence, but their prominence in American culture. There were many men within the mafia who were ruthless killers, and I plan to tell you more about them in future episodes. We know that these men were largely self-serving, and they put the Cosa Nostra above all things, even their own wives and children. They aren't good people to most. But if you were on the right side of the Italian mafia, you were taken care of.
The best guy around.
We're going to talk about that clip soon. They prioritize loyalty above all else. And there is a common theme in most mafia stories. When loyalty is broken, the end swiftly follows.
You can't be a rat.
It's true. You can't be a rat, but you know, in many cases, when people become a rat or loyalty is broken, that's when these mafia cases fall apart.
That's when you sleep with the fishes.
You sleep with the fishes. The RICO Act, short for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, was passed in 1970. The RICO Act is what they are charging Diddy with. They're charging.
Crazy.
He has a RICO case against him. I'm going to explain what the RICO is.
That's crazy. They're charging them with, like, they use the mafia stuff now to get other people, because these laws were only implemented to get the mafia.
They were, yeah.
And it almost seemed like these RICO acts are like left up to interpretation. It isn't like a solid.
No,
thing.
it's not. It's not left up to interpretation. It's just pretty clear.
I don't know.
So it was passed in 1970 to help the government finally go after the big fish in organized crime. Before RICO, law enforcement could only charge mobsters for individual crimes, which meant that the bosses at the top usually walked free while the underlings took the fall. RICO flipped the script. It let prosecutors charge people for being part of a criminal organization, even if they didn't personally commit the crimes, as long as they were the ones calling the shots or benefiting from illegal activity.
Wow.
That meant someone like Gambino crime family boss John Gotti could be held responsible for everything his family did. It also allowed the feds to connect all kinds of crimes like murder, gambling, extortion, and drug trafficking into one big case. So it allows all these things that would have previously been separate charges, they're allowed to now be all inclusive into RICO cases. Once RICO got rolling in the 80s, it hit the mafia hard. Dozens of top guys flipped, entire families went down, and the mob's power started to unravel. In the gritty underworld of New York City, where loyalty was currency and betrayal meant death, one man came from the poverty-stricken streets of East New York.
East New York's rough.
Yes, to become the face of American organized crime. John Gotti, the son of an immigrant laborer, wasn't just another gangster. He was like a walking contradiction. He was charming, but ruthless. He was streetwise, but media savvy. A cold-blooded killer in a $2,000 suit. By the late 1980s, he wasn't just running the most powerful mafia family in the country. He was captivating the nation with his swagger, his courtroom victories, and his untouchable image. But behind the headlines and designer suits was a man playing a dangerous game with the FBI, his enemies, and his own ego. A game that would make him a legend and eventually destroy him and the entire Gambino family. This is the takedown of John Gotti and the Gambino crime family. Are you ready?
Yes. I was trying to think of like something mafia to say. It didn't work.
Okay.
I was like, damn, what could I say?
Outside of New Yorkers, a lot of people in our generation know of John Gotti because of the reality TV show Growing Up Gotti. You remember that?
Yeah, I didn't watch that at all, but he also was on the front page of a newspaper a lot. I remember that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I feel like in New York especially, he's super well known in New York. But when we're talking about people from all over the world and all over the country, they really got familiar with him with Growing Up Gotti.
Yeah, but he was already in jail.
Oh, yeah, no, he was already in jail. Growing Up Gotti was about his daughter Victoria and her 3 sons. But that's what familiarized people with who John Gotti was, if you weren't from New York. John Gotti was viewed by many New Yorkers as a Robin Hood figure, a street guy who rose to the top and took from the rich to give back to his own. There's a viral clip that I know a lot of New Yorkers know, that especially New Yorkers our age. And it's of a guy who says, what does he say, Russ?
What murder? He was the best guy around.
That clip is viral, so I know
good.
you know it. So I'll play it so everybody can hear it.
Of course. He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
So when researching this case, I realized that John Gotti's story unfolds like a Shakespearean tragedy, marked by ambition, loyalty, betrayal, and an inevitable fall from power. He climbed all the way to the top of the Gambino crime family. He was smart, bold, and totally fearless. But just like in those old plays, his power came with a price. The same loyalty and ambition that built his empire also led to betrayal, especially when one of his closest friends and underboss, Sammy the Bull, flipped on him.
You're a rat. That was my big end.
Sammy does not think he's a rat, and I'll explain later why.
He's a rat.
In the end, Gotti's fall from grace, going from the flashy Teflon Don, as they called him,
That's a cool name.
to dying alone in prison, feels like the kind of tragic ending Shakespeare would have written, just with a lot of New York slang and a lot of New York swag. To understand John Gotti's rise, we have to start decades earlier, with the assassination of a guy named Albert Anastasia. Albert Anastasia was one of the most feared and violent men in mafia history. He helped run a group called Murder, Inc.
That's where freaking Ja Rule got it from.
Probably, yeah.
No, 100%.
They were the enforcement arm of organized crime that carried out hundreds of contract killings in the 30s and 40s. By the early 50s, he was the boss of what would later be known as the Gambino crime family. But Anastasia had enemies. He was erratic, too visible, and in a world that thrived on discretion, he brought way too much attention and heat. Carlo Gambino, his underboss, saw a better way. Quiet, calculating, and patient, Carlo built alliances behind the scenes. And in 1957, he made his move. On October 25th, Albert Anastasia was in Manhattan in a barbershop, wrapped in a hot towel, mid-shave, when suddenly, two masked gunmen entered and opened fire, riddled him with bullets, and he collapsed into a pile of mirrors and shaving cream.
Wow.
That image became iconic. A mob boss murdered in broad daylight, and no one was ever officially charged. Just like that, Carlo Gambino took control of the family. He was the underboss, which is crazy. This is this dude's underboss, and he just organizes this whole murder of his boss. It's a ballsy move.
It seems like that happens a lot. Not only do you get taken out for being a rat or doing anything wrong, it seems that they get taken out from people that are underneath them wanting to become a boss.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that too. So Carlo Gambino was the kind of mob boss you almost wouldn't notice until it was too late. He was born in Sicily in 1902, and he came to the U.S. as a teenager. While other gangsters like Al Capone made headlines with flashy clothes and shootouts, Carlo kept things low-key. He didn't need to show off. He let power and results speak for himself. So in 1957, after the hit on Albert Anastasia, Carlo took over and ran the family like a well-oiled machine. He focused on smart, quiet rackets, things like labor unions, construction scams, and illegal gambling, making millions without drawing too much attention to the family.
And they would have a lot of no-show jobs. Like, they would get their family members jobs in unions that like pay well, and they would never have to show up. They were just on payroll and would collect checks.
They would just collect checks. Exactly, yeah.
It'd be like 6-figure jobs. Back then, that was a ton of money. So they would get paid like the top people, but never have to show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I need a nice no-show job right about now.
You too. Yo, where's the mafia at?
Yo, hit me up. I'm no rat.
He was a strategist, not a street thug, and people respected him for it. But the mafia created the Commission back in 1931 under Lucky Luciano's guidance. It was essentially a board of directors for organized crime. It was like their own government. The bosses of the New York Five families, Gambino, Lucchese, Genovese, Colombo, and Bonanno, along with other national crime syndicate leaders, sat on the commission, and the commission made the rules. So they approved hits on high-ranking members and mediated disputes. It was meant to keep the mafia stable and prevent wars among the families. And it worked most of the time. Carlo Gambino, I'm assuming, got permission to carry out this hit because the commission was already formed at the time. And then he was now one of the people on the commission. Carlo Gambino played the commission like a master chess player. He focused the family on white-collar crimes. His empire quietly grew to the most powerful mafia family in America, at one point bringing in an estimated $500 million a year.
Wow. Back then? Oh my God. That's like $1 billion.
This is the 60s.
It's probably like double or, so it's basically, it was making in today's money, probably like $1 billion a year.
It's crazy when you think about how much money that is.
I always find it crazy with the mafia. No matter how much money they get, they always want more.
They always want more. It's all about greed.
Like, because if it was bringing in 500 mil, he's obviously not getting it. You divvy up some money and stuff, but you have so much money that you don't have to do anything anymore and put yourself at risk.
So yeah, it's $500 million across the entire family, and mafia family is pretty big, and he was probably raking in a small percentage of that, but that's enough for him to be.
Yeah, if you have millions.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
This is all from. This not like what I'm talking as if like I really know something, but I don't. I'm just going by like what I see off of TV shows.
Yeah. So when Carlo Gambino's health began to fail in the mid-1970s, many assumed that his underboss, Anilo Neil Della Croce, would take over. Della Croce was respected. He was an old-school mobster. He was feared yet admired at the same time. But Carlo didn't want another Anastasia-style boss, someone who ruled with muscle and emotion. So instead, Gambino made a controversial choice. Paul Castellano was his brother-in-law and a businessman in mob terms. He was known for his preference for white-collar crime over street violence. Carlo Gambino appointed him to take control after his death. Carlo liked his style because he was similar to him. Castellano lived in a mansion in Staten Island, wore tailored suits, and considered himself more of a CEO than a capo. He wanted to modernize the mob, emphasizing construction rackets, union fraud, and stock scams over street-level thuggery.
Kind of sounds like he's a congressman.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm just going to do all these white-collar crimes and hide behind the law.
Well,
respect to the law.
A lot of these guys had, congressmen and senators and even the Kennedys and the presidents in their back pocket.
That's wild.
It's really crazy. Like when you research the mob, and we've talked about the mafia a few times on our podcast, but when you research it, how much influence they have on American culture always surprises me. Well, how much the influence they have over politics and stuff surprises me.
Well, back in the day, you couldn't get elected without the unions because the unions had so many members.
Yeah.
Like the Teamsters. That was like all the politicians wanted the votes of the Teamsters because there were so many of them.
Yep. And the Teamsters were owned by the mob.
Yep.
They were ran and owned by the mob.
That's what they say, but I don't know anything because I'm not a rat.
To Carlo, this seemed like the future of the mafia. Low profile, high profit. But many soldiers resented Paul Castellano. To them, he wasn't one of them. He hadn't earned his bones in the trenches. He wasn't shooting with them in the gym, as you say. Street guys didn't respect him at all, especially a crew of truck hijacking thieves and their leader, a low-level thug by the name of John Gotti. Did you know there are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living rent-free in our world, from the food we eat to the air we breathe and even the skincare we use? Hormonal changes like perimenopause or menopause can strike at any moment. And suddenly you're having mood swings, losing sleep, and feeling like you just don't have control. But here's the good news, though. This is one mystery you can solve with Happy Mammoth. Happy Mammoth is a forward-thinking, all-natural wellness brand that specializes in creating natural health solutions aimed at promoting total body health and vitality with a strong focus on gut health and hormone balance. And the results are impressive. There are over 40,000 reviews on their website. Women cannot stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of their famous Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code wifeofcrime1 at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code wifeofcrime1 for 15% off today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. So, what are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe it's never skipping the gym or never skipping therapy day, getting that weekly manicure. Or maybe you're like me and you have a really tough time with self-care because you're so focused on everything else going on in your life. Life can be crazy and busy. You have many schedules to juggle, work projects, school projects. It never ends. But the times you're feeling overwhelmed is when therapy can be key. My therapist reminds me on a weekly basis that I need to do something, at least 1 to 3 things every week to take care of myself. So if you're feeling the effects of lack of self-care and you're thinking about giving therapy a try, check out BetterHelp. It's convenient and incredibly flexible. All you have to do to get started is fill out an online questionnaire. You'll be matched with a therapist and you can switch at any time. Our listeners get 10% off their first month if you use our code. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off. That's BETTERHELP.com/wifeofcrime1. John Gotti was born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, which was and is still a rough neighborhood.
Super rough.
By his teens, he was stealing trucks, running with gangs, and making connections inside the Gambino family, especially under Della Croce. Gotti idolized men like Della Croce. They were tough. They were street guys. They were unpretentious. And he liked that. In 1973, Gotti would earn respect from high-ranking members of the Gambino family when he was involved in the murder of a man named James McBratney. See, James was a tough street-level gangster from Staten Island who made the mistake of crossing the mafia.
Was he Irish?
He was.
Yeah, it's the Mick.
Yeah, he was an Irish-American, and McBratney had a reputation for being aggressive and dangerous.
Is that why they called him Mix? Because the name be like Mick something? Like Mick Bradney? Like, is that why they call Irish Mix?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that was is that a slang term for Irish people?
I thought so,
Mix.
but now I'm going to have to look it up because I might be making shit up.
Maybe it's derogatory. You should look it up.
No, but I'm not calling him that. I'm wondering if that's why they called him that. And
maybe that is why they call Irish people Mix.
But I don't have bad intentions, so if someone took it offensively, they could just go fuck off.
No, I'm not saying that. I just don't know why they. Yeah, I don't know why they.
Or like they slipped him a Mickey.
Oh, yeah. Slipped him a Mickey is an Irish term for sure. But a mix, calling somebody a Mick.
It is a derogatory term. It is offensive.
Wow.
According to this AI overview on Google.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it probably stemmed from Italians, or does it say where it stemmed from? Well, we know it's a derogatory term now.
Yeah, I guess you're not supposed to call them a Mick.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think it's because
Because you thought because their names are McBradney, McDonald,
Wait, McDonald's is an Irish restaurant?
No, McDonald's. Well, McDonald is probably an Irish last name, McDonald.
They do serve potatoes.
So McBratney, he had a reputation for being aggressive and dangerous. And in the early 70s, he became part of a crew that would kidnap and extort ransom money from high-ranking members of New York's Italian mafia families. So they would target associates of the Gambino family. They would kidnap them and then hold them for ransom.
Very bold.
Very bold to do.
Because these people they aren't like Onijah Robinson. They don't respect the law.
No, they do not respect the law. They have their own law.
Yeah.
So this crew was referred to as the Snatch Team by the mafia. They saw mobsters as lucrative targets who couldn't go to the police. But
True.
you can't do this type of shit for a very long time. And what McBratney failed to consider was that the mafia has a long memory and zero tolerance for disrespect. When McBratney and his crew were linked to the kidnapping and murder of Emmanuel Manny Gambino,
What murder?
a nephew of boss Carlo Gambino, it sealed his fate. On May 22nd, 1973, McBratney was tracked down to Snoop's Bar and Grill in Staten Island. Disguised as police officers, 3 men, John Gotti, Angelo Ruggiero, and Ralph Gallione, attempted to, quote, arrest him. When things got heated, Gallione shot McBratney dead in front of several stunned bar patrons. Though Gotti would take the fall and serve time for the killing, the hit marked his first major act of violence on behalf of the Gambino family, and it set him on a path to becoming a made man.
How much time did he spend in jail?
So he was only sentenced to 7 years, and he only served 2 years.
Oh, shit, 2?
2 years. Yeah. After getting out of prison, he became capo of the Bergen crew in Queens, running gambling, extortion, and loan sharking rackets from the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club. He ran his crew for a few years, and he was a low-level guy. He was kind of considered a street thug by all the top guys. Like, they looked at him like, whatever, this
The
guy.
guy's making some chump change over there.
Yeah, like he's just a low-level street thug. The guys who do the dirty work, while the captains and bosses live the lavish lifestyle and rake in millions. In 1980, John Gotti's 12-year-old son, Frank, was killed in a tragic accident right in their neighborhood in Queens. He was riding his mini bike when a neighbor, a guy named John Favora, accidentally hit him with his car.
Oh, shit, he's dead.
It was ruled an accident, but emotions were high. Not long after, Favora started getting threats, and even Gotti's wife reportedly hit him with a baseball bat.
I'm surprised he even got the threats and just didn't wake up dead.
Well, a few months later, he suddenly disappeared. Witnesses said he was shoved into a van outside his work and was never seen again. His body has never been found. And while no one was ever officially charged, most people believe the mob, probably with Gotti's approval, took revenge. I listened to an interview with John Gotti Jr., because he now talks a lot about his father, now that his father is dead. And apparently, this dude was picked up, taken, killed, and cut in half with a chainsaw.
Wow.
Yeah. It was one of those moments that showed how close the personal and criminal could get in Gotti's world. So when Paul Castellano took over in 1976, tensions really began to simmer. Castellano and Gotti barely tolerated each other. Like I said earlier, Castellano was like his predecessor, Carlo Gambino. He ran the mob like a CEO runs a company. He stayed in his mansion, enjoyed his life of luxury, and called the shots from his tower in the sky, aka Staten Island. At one point, every ounce of construction was controlled by the Gambino family, because any time concrete was poured on a construction site in any building or any residential construction, anything, you had to pay a mob tax.
Wow.
Any ounce of concrete being poured, okay? So this made construction in New York City the highest cost in the entire country. Paul Castellano set this up, and it was one of the biggest money makers in the family.
New York is completely concrete.
It is concrete
Literally.
jungle.
Yeah.
And the mob had a concrete tax. on
That's
all of it.
wild.
The final blow between Castellano and Gotti came when Castellano started cracking down on heroin trafficking. He didn't want the Gambino family involved in the heroin trade. He wanted the family more focused on white-collar crime and on labor union and loan sharking rackets, things like that. But this was a policy that Gotti completely ignored. Him and his crew were selling heroin and coke, so Castellano hinted that he might demote or even kill, aka whack, Gotti for his disobedience.
I bet that he wanted to just keep committing white-collar crimes because he was thinking he would get less time as well. It's less risk. If you're not, I would assume that killing people would get you more time than crime, like financial crimes.
Of course. You know, like...
But not necessarily, because if you're getting a RICO charge and that's a charge just being for being down with the mob, they're getting like life for RICO charges as well.
Of course. But also, you have to think, this is the war on drugs. War on drugs started in the 70s with Nixon. Okay?
And I think it's safe to say the war on drugs has completely failed.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it just locked up tons of people for having weed and not even that much of it sometimes.
Oh, yeah, the war on drugs was an epic failure.
But something that when they were implementing this war on drugs, a lot of people thought it was a good idea because they thought these large consequences to their crimes or having drugs on them or selling drugs would deter people from selling them.
Yeah.
Or buying them but it didn't.
No, the war on drugs was a terrible idea. It focused
But you didn't know that at first because even if you told me, all right, we're going to set these big penalties out for selling drugs, buying drugs, having drugs on you. If you're not in that world, you don't necessarily know, and you assume that, when you're a kid, if you touch a stove, it's hot. I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. They figured people would stop.
Yeah, but it ended up getting corrupted.
Oh,
obviously.
It was the worst.
It was terrible. And, from Paul Castellano's viewpoint, he's like, why am I going to get involved in all that? We don't need everybody getting locked up. We don't need people's names in the papers. We don't need all of that. We need to stick with the low risk, high profit stuff that we're doing.
And why wouldn't you?
Like a tax on all concrete being poured in the concrete jungle.
I know you're trying to pour some concrete. Next thing you know, you got some fat bastard in an Adidas tracksuit bothering you.
It's true.
You're like, get the fuck out of here.
I know. It's so true.
But then, you might go whoop them in the moment, but then you're
dead. Then you're going to wake up dead.
You sleep with the fishes with some concrete shoes.
Yup, you sure are. That's so true. So in Castellano's eyes, these low-level pieces of shit are going to get locked up for drugs, and this was too much risk for him, and he was getting pissed off because he told the entire family, don't get involved in the drug trade. Gotti deliberately disobeyed him, didn't listen, and was selling drugs anyway. In 1985, when Della Croce died of cancer, Paul Castellano skipped the funeral. This was huge, okay, because this is Paul's underboss, right? This is his underboss right below him. He dies of cancer. Paul's mansion had been bugged by the FBI, and he was charged just a year before with 51 counts of racketeering, okay? So he had a lot going on with the FBI at the time.
Do you know how they bugged it?
I do know that they bugged his mansion through his maid.
Wow. So I was wondering, did they go in as a repairman and just sneak in a couple of them?
So I didn't go down the rabbit hole of Paul Castellano because I was trying to stay focused on Gotti in this. But Paul Castellano has his own story.
That could be a whole nother episode.
It's a whole nother episode, exactly. But when I was looking it up, the FBI tried bugging his mansion through stuff like that, but they kept making mistakes. But then they ended up finding out that his maid was also his lover. So he was messing around with his maid. So they got his maid. And his maid helped the FBI, but I don't know all the details of how it happened.
Listen, in every mafia movie, every drug dealing movie, you either go down because of the woman or greed. That pillow talk will get you. You talk to these girls. Jess knows everything.
I do.
She could take down my enterprise if she wanted to.
I could.
And if I could, I'd get to stepping.
Stop. You would not. So Paul's mansion had been bugged by the FBI, and he was charged the year before with 51 counts of racketeering. Okay, so he was facing a lot with the FBI. He was on their radar, and he thought that it would look really bad to go to Neil Della Croce's funeral. Many people in the crime family, though, were pissed. They saw this as a violation to the ultimate oath you take when you're made, which is La Cosa Nostra, above everything, even yourself. La Cosa Nostra, what does it mean?
Blood in, blood out.
No, it means our thing.
Oh, why did I think that?
I don't know, but it means our thing in Italian. And La Cosa Nostra is the vow you take when you become maid. You take this vow to put the family above everything, your wife, your kids, yourself even. So if that means that you have 51 charges of racketeering on you, you're still going to go to your underboss's funeral and show respect. And so when he didn't, a lot of people in the family were pissed.
I see that because where I'm from in the Bronx now, there's a lot of paying respects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It like trickled down.
It did, for sure. 100%. So that was it. Gotti saw it not only as disrespect to his mentor, but also as a green light to move on his boss. So he staged a coup. History always repeats itself. So Gotti took a page out of his old boss, Carlo Gambino's book, and orchestrated a bloody takeover. On December 16, 1985, Castellano and his driver, Thomas Bellotti, pulled up to Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan. As they stepped out of their car, 4 gunmen immediately walked up and opened fire. Castellano was hit multiple times before he even hit the ground.
Wow.
The streets were packed with holiday shoppers. The execution was bold, public, and theatrical. Exactly the kind of thing Carlo Gambino hated. He was rolling over in his grave. Behind the scenes, Gotti sat in the car across the street and watched the whole thing unfold. Sitting next to him was his longtime friend and associate, Sammy the Bull Gravano.
You're a rat.
Gotti had all 4 of the shooters wear identical white trench coats with Russian fur hats on their heads. That way, none of them could be easily identified by onlookers. Within days, Gotti made himself the Don. He was now the boss of the Gambino crime family. It was a power grab that violated everything the Mafia Commission stood for.
Wow.
They didn't approve this hit, and no one ever killed a boss without the Mafia Commission approval. But Gotti, at this point, was too powerful, too well-liked by the street guys, and too dangerous to challenge.
It seemed, I didn't know a lot about him because I was very young when this was in the newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
But he seemed very charismatic.
He was.
Like, I don't know, but he seemed like charismatic people make you feel good when you're around them.
Yeah, he was very charismatic. And, all the street guys really liked him because he came from the bottom.
He seemed cool.
Yes. So when John Gotti took over the Gambino crime family, he didn't just inherit a criminal empire. He reshaped it in his own image. The old school, behind-the-scenes style of leadership that Carlo Gambino favored was completely thrown out. Gotti ran the mafia like a CEO, but with a taste for drama. He balanced deadly authority with tabloid stardom. His leadership was equal parts strategy, fear, and personal charm, and for a time it worked. Gotti made the Gambino family the most powerful, feared, and talked about crime syndicate in the country. So this is so different from how it was previously ran. Before, Paul Castellano and Carlo Gambino ran it like they wanted to keep it quiet.
Yeah, basically they operated in the shadows.
Discretion was important to them.
Which seems like the best way to me for longevity. But now being that, see, that's weird. So if somebody kills them,
Mm-hmm.
they become the boss. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like, it reminds me of is this wrestling? If somebody beats the hardcore champion, they're now the hardcore champion?
I don't think that that's supposed to happen. Usually it doesn't because the Mafia Commission has to approve a hit like that. But like I said, back when Carlo Gambino did it, I think the Mafia Commission approved it. But this time, they didn't approve it But so many people liked Gotti that they just let it slide and they let him become the boss.
Mm.
He handpicked a leadership team that included Sammy the Bull Gravano as his underboss and a guy named Frank Lucascio as his consigliere, or his right-hand man. Gotti rewarded loyalty, promoted friends, and made sure every crew understood who was in charge. His message was very clear. Gotti's way or no way.
Mm.
Under Gotti, the Gambino family ran a wide range of criminal enterprises that generated hundreds of millions of dollars a year. With construction and labor unions, he controlled all the major unions, like the Carpenters Union, the Teamsters, and he took kickbacks and manipulated contract bids. No project moved in New York without paying the Gambino family. Businesses, especially in the garment district, trucking, and restaurant industries, paid the family for, quote, protection. Right. They would go into a business and say, you're going to give me this much percentage of your profits and we're going to protect you.
What it is, you're getting protection from the people that are hypothetically protecting you, because you're going to have problems with these people
if you don't pay them.
Yeah.
Bookmaking operations and loan sharking services were spread all across New York and beyond, and this generated a constant income. Like, you go into the Bronx right now, there's a bookie at the bar.
Yeah, there's horse bookies. Well, I don't necessarily know if there's horse bookies because I'm no rat.
No,
I've heard that there might be someone.
There might be a bookie at the bars in the Bronx.
And I've never placed a bet with this hypothetical bookie ever.
Me neither. So while Gotti publicly enforced a ban on drug trafficking, just like Paul Castellano did, it was an open secret that many under his command were involved in heroin and cocaine distribution, with his approval, so long as the profits were rolling in. Each capo ran a crew of soldiers and associates and kicked a percentage up to Gotti and operated semi-independently as long as they followed his orders and showed respect. Gotti didn't micromanage anybody, but he expected absolute loyalty and swift obedience. He ruled kind of like a monarch. Hands off in business, he let your crew do your own thing, but very hands-on in punishment.
To be feared.
Yes. One of the most unique and dangerous aspects of Gotti's leadership was how public he made the mafia. He flaunted his status with these expensive tailored suits, luxury cars, and high-profile events.
He was very often on the front page of the newspapers in New York City.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it seemed as if he loved it.
He did love it. This visibility made him a folk hero to some, especially in working-class Italian-American neighborhoods, where he was seen as someone who beat the system and took care of his own.
The best guy
He's
around.
the best guy around. What murder? That's a prime example, that viral clip. But it horrified other mafia bosses.
He probably bought this guy like a donut once.
Right? I know. It horrified other mafia bosses and other members who believed in the traditional code of secrecy and discretion. To them, Gotti was reckless and ego-driven. Gotti's rise to power had been violent, and he kept his throne the same way. He used violence selectively, but decisively, to enforce discipline and eliminate threats. Murders were ordered to keep soldiers in line, resolve disputes, or take out suspected informants. His underboss, Sammy the Bull, has openly admitted to 19 murders under the order of Gotti. But while Gotti was enjoying his celebrity, the FBI was watching and listening very closely. The Ravenite Social Club was a small storefront tucked away on Mulberry Street in Little Italy. This was John Gotti's go-to hangout and the main meeting spot for the Gambino crime family. So you have this small social club, you have all these social clubs in New York. You have this small social club called the Ravenite. And the FBI realizes this is where the Gambino crime family is conducting all of their business. So they're sitting out there surveying this place, watching all of these mob guys in and out all day. It's like their headquarters, which is so reckless on Gotti's part. It would have been so much smarter to do what Paul Castellano and Carlo Gambino did and have it in their home, not just a random little storefront social club on Mulberry Street.
There still are like those kind of social clubs. I don't know what they're involved in today, but they're kind of just like a coffee shop that's not serving you coffee.
Yeah, you don't walk in and 100%. I worked at a restaurant right next door to a social club, and I would have to go in there sometimes to get change.
They would give you change?
They would give me change, yeah. And I would walk in sometimes to get change, and like there was an espresso machine, and they gave me coffee sometimes. It was just a bunch of old Italian dudes playing cards. I don't know what they were into. I'm sure it's a cover for something.
I want to have a social club.
Yeah, social clubs there is a bunch of them still.
I could open one with some friends, and then it could be a place just to get away from your wives, kind of like Al Bundy in his basement. We could have like a no-ma'am club. That means you are out.
Oh, I'm not allowed.
No, you're too bossy.
Well, social clubs are still around and still you see them different places. But to have the entire crime family's enterprise and all of the businesses and meetings happening out of this little storefront was really dumb because the FBI saw it all. So they first planted a mic. They decided to bug the place. And they first planted a mic right inside in the wall. And they quickly realized they were unable to hear any conversations because Gotti had music playing at all times. The FBI later got even sneakier, and they realized that they were holding meetings, especially Gotti and his inner circle, were holding meetings in the upstairs apartment. The upstairs apartment was owned by a 70-year-old single woman who she was either a widow or she was divorced, but she was single, 74-year-old. Her name was Nettie Cirielli. So Nettie would let Gotti and the inner circle hold secret meetings up there. They would tell her...
AKA Nettie Pot. That was her name.
Nettie Cirielli, yeah. Nettie the Pot Cirielli. So she, the men would tell her, hey, we need to talk. And she'd leave for a few hours and she'd come back. I don't know what he was giving her. I don't know if he paid her rent. I don't know though. They had a setup and I don't know what it was. But the FBI realized that's where some of these meetings were happening. So they decided to bug her apartment. Those recordings captured all kinds of incriminating stuff. Talks about hits, money, and day-to-day mafia dealings. It was a huge win for the feds, and it played a big role in finally taking Gotti down in court. Gotti faced 3 big indictments before the law finally caught up with him, and each one tells a wild story. The first came in 1984, when he was hit with racketeering charges under the RICO Act. Things like illegal gambling, loan sharking, and hijacking trucks. The feds had wiretapes and informants, but Gotti walked in 1986 thanks in part to a bribed juryman.
Why is loan sharking illegal? You're only doing what the credit card companies do. So you have to be a corporation?
Yeah, I guess
you know
because
because
they include it in the RICO Act. Because
if I lend you money, you got to give it back with interest.
I'm
doing you a favor. Otherwise, you won't have the money for your rent or whatever, or whatever you're borrowing it for.
But I think because the mafia was doing it, and then if you're not paying them back with interest, you get killed or beat up.
It's only fair.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think it should, but it's part of the RICO.
You don't give me my money back? Something has to happen because, the big places will just mess up your credit and you can never get anything. But regular people don't have access to your credit score.
Yeah, but the government wants that money. They don't want these
but
mafia families
Discover
to be
card,
doing
Amex
it.
card, Visa, MasterCard. Those aren't the government.
I know, you're preaching to the choir. I get it. I don't understand why loan sharking is illegal either, but it is.
See, it shouldn't be illegal, but, killing or beating someone should always be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you get caught doing that, now you're in trouble, to me.
Well, same with illegal gambling. If you want to run gambling in your own establishment or whatever, but the government's not getting a piece of it. So of course you're going to get charged. It's part of the RICO Act. So.
Yeah, I played a lot of cards in back rooms of places.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've
And
played,
they take a rake, you know.
they take, of course, but so does the casino. But I also started to think there was cheating going on
There
through
probably
the
was.
dealers, so I just stopped going.
I don't
'Cause
blame you.
There were too many coincidences.
I'm sure there was cheating going on. You know, it's not regulated.
Yeah.
So the feds had wiretapes and informants, but Gotti walked in 1986 because of a bribed juror. A man by the name of George Pape was offered $60,000 to vote for Gotti's acquittal by Gotti's underboss, Sammy the Bull, and he accepted the money. Gotti walked free because of this juryman. 3 years later, George Pape was charged with obstruction of justice when the FBI found out.
Damn.
And he was convicted to 10 years.
He got more time than Gotti got.
Gotti got nothing. In 1986, Gotti got indicted again, this time for assault and conspiracy to commit murder tied to the Gambino family violence. That case quickly fell apart, too. One of the most important witnesses lined up to testify against him was a guy named Willie Boy Johnson, a longtime associate of Gotti's and someone who had actually been working as an informant for the FBI for years.
Rat.
Willie Boy knew a lot. He had been close to Gotti since the early days, and he had been secretly feeding the feds information on the Gambino family going back to the 1970s. His testimony could have seriously hurt Gotti in this case, but things took a dramatic turn when his identity as an informant got leaked. A major screw-up that basically signed his death warrant. Once the mob found out that he was a rat, Willie Boy's life was in danger. So the FBI moved him into protective custody, but at that point, he refused to testify, likely to try to protect his family and maybe even save his face in the mob world.
Too late.
Too late. Without him on the stand, the prosecution's case completely lost its star witness, and Gotti walked free again in 1987. But Willie Boy was not safe forever. In 1988, he was shot and killed outside of his home in Brooklyn, a hit that was almost certainly mob payback for being an informant. It was a brutal reminder that in Gotti's world, betrayal didn't go unpunished, even if you kept your mouth shut in the end.
Well, I could kind of see that. Like, if you're down with the lifestyle and then you tell, then you're going to get what's coming to you.
100%. I think that's
And if
why...
you're an innocent person, I don't consider it snitching if you have nothing to do with the life necessarily. And
like if you're just a business owner who they come in and extort, and then, you know, the feds come to you or you get subpoenaed and you have to go to court, like you don't consider that snitching because you're just a guy who was getting extorted by them.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you are snitching, but when you're a civilian, it's not really snitching. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to word it.
No, but I agree. Like, I think these guys are all in this lifestyle. They all know what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
When you get into this lifestyle, you are sworn to loyalty. You swear an oath to loyalty to the family. And then when you become an informant, you're getting what's coming to you.
Yeah, then you're a rat.
After that second win in 1987, people started calling him the Teflon Don because nothing seemed to stick. And there is tons of footage of Gotti, you know, getting arrested with a giant smile on his face, knowing that he's not gonna get convicted of anything. There is him like walking through the streets of New York after his acquittals and everybody cheering, and all these people are like, he's a great guy. What is he, a criminal? You know, like they're all outside the courthouse talking about him. And it's so funny. Like I love watching the footage from back then.
Yeah, he started to get very arrogant and acted as if he couldn't be touched.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, 100%. You know, like after you've been charged with these huge crimes and you've been acquitted twice, you know, he got a big head. So
You would think it's time to ride off into the sunset and just stay low key because they're going to get you eventually.
100%.
They're going to keep trying at the bare minimum.
His ego was too big.
He liked being the boss.
Yes, he did. His luck ran out in 1990 when he was indicted a third time, facing serious charges: 5 murders, racketeering, gambling, obstruction of justice, and tax evasion. The game changer in this case was his underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano, flipping and testifying against him. The FBI had Gotti and Sammy in jail, charged and awaiting trial. But they were smart. They brought Sammy in for questioning and played some tapes for him that they knew would change everything. The FBI had the Ravenite Social Club in the apartment above bugged now for a while, and they were listening in on hours and hours of meetings. In one meeting, John Gotti is talking to a few of his men without Sammy there. He is talking smack about Sammy, complaining about him, and even saying he would pin murders on him.
Sammy was his hitman, for people that don't know.
Yes, it was his underboss.
But saying underboss doesn't let you know that he was his enforcer.
He was his enforcer, and like I said before, he admitted to 19 murders under Gotti.
Yeah.
That Gotti directly told him to carry out.
And if you go on YouTube, Sammy the Bull is talking a lot. You can just look it up. He has a whole thing where he's like telling so many stories. It's very interesting. I was hooked on it for a little while.
Yeah, he's got a podcast.
I was watching a lot of it, yeah.
His podcast is called Our Thing, and he tells tons of stories. And he talks about this. He talks about the day that the FBI brought him the tapes. He put on his headphones and he was listening. And he's literally listening to Gotti, who he's been completely loyal to now for years. And he's listening to him talk to these other guys all this terrible stuff about him, and then saying that if, these murders are coming down on him, he's going to pin them on Sammy.
So now what's crazy, though, is, you could tell that the mafia isn't that relevant now, because Sammy the Bull is just walking around making videos and, he's just chilling.
Me and Russ were out to dinner one night in the Bronx, and he was sitting in the corner at a table by himself, drinking a glass of red wine alone. And I looked at Russ, I was like, that's Sammy the Bull right here in the Bronx, sitting in the table over here. And he's just hanging out.
Yeah, so that generation, or the generation of that mafia that hates him is mostly gone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be alive right now.
True. Well, once he heard these tapes, he was pissed, because he had been so loyal to Gotti for so many years. And Gotti was about to pin all of these murders on him and paint himself as a boss out of touch with zero involvement, and just say these were all Sammy's idea, even though he was directly involved in each and every one. Sammy was stunned. He had been Gotti's underboss, carrying out his hits, running the family's day-to-day operations, and now the man he trusted was throwing him under the bus and trying to save himself. That betrayal was the final straw. Realizing he was being set up to take the fall, Sammy decided to flip. He cut a deal with the government and agreed to testify against Gotti.
He's definitely the most famous rat.
In 1992, Gotti was tried on 13 federal charges, including murder, racketeering, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. With Gravano's testimony and the FBI's wiretapes, the evidence was ironclad. Gotti was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He spent the rest of his life in federal supermax prison in Illinois, locked away for 23 hours a day. He was in solitary for the rest of his life.
Wow.
He died of throat cancer on June 10th, 2002, far from the spotlight he once craved. John Gotti's takedown wasn't just the end of a man. It was the beginning of the end for the American mafia as a dominant criminal force. His arrest and conviction empowered the FBI to replicate their strategy across all 5 families. They bugged clubs, turned soldiers into informants, and used RICO laws to dismantle entire families. Dozens of mob bosses and capos were arrested. Thousands of years of sentences were handed out. In the end, John Gotti's downfall wasn't just the result of FBI surveillance or trusted underboss flipping. It was that he broke the very code that built the mob, omerta, the vow of silence and loyalty. By bad-mouthing Sammy the Bull on tape and trying to shift the blame for murders onto him, Gotti violated the unwritten rules of the mafia, showing weakness betrayal, and self-preservation over honor. That betrayal pushed Sammy to cooperate with the government, sealing Gotti's fate. Like I said in the beginning, this was a classic Shakespearean unraveling. Power, pride, and ambition leading to betrayal from within, not by enemies, but by those closest to him. Like a modern-day Julius Caesar, Gotti fell not just because of the system chasing him, but because of his own actions, his own voice, and the very people he once ruled over. In trying to protect his empire, he brought it crashing down around him. And this was literally the end of the five families. Like, it really destroyed. The Gotti case was the beginning of the end of the Gambino family altogether, and then all the other families subsequently fell apart.
I always thought that technology was probably the downfall of them, because you can't get away with crimes in the shadows anymore because everything is recorded. DNA, like, you just can't kill someone and get away with it anymore.
Yeah, and I think, now the mafia still exists. They're still around, but they're like a shadow of what they once were. Like, they're definitely a way milder version of what they once were.
Yeah.
We're watching the show Mobland right now.
So good.
It's really, really good. Mobland is awesome. So,
but it's not necessarily like a traditional mob thing.
No, this is like this is Irish mob.
You should watch it, though.
It's really good. It's over in the UK, but it's a really good example of how the mafia would operate today with all the technology of like the things they would do. And a lot of the, like, in this underworld, they go after each other a lot of the times. This is wars between each other. It's not like it was back in the day when they were going after businesses, extorting businesses, construction. I mean, they were big into all that before.
See, if you're part of that life and you're going after each other, that's just what comes with the life. So, it's only, to me, bad when they go after people that aren't involved in that life.
Yeah, I agree. Since they're killing each other, this is what they asked for, pretty much.
Yeah, like, it's the consequences of your lifestyle.
Yeah, this is the lifestyle
like, if
you
you drive super fast and you die in a car accident, it's kind of your fault. If you're flying down a mountain in a mountain bike and you fucking hit a tree, it's your fault.
Oh, okay. It's not your fault. That was an accident. But I understand what you're saying. These guys live this lifestyle. And that's one of the reasons I chose to do a mafia case, because the past few episodes have been very, very rough for me, very heavy. And I needed a palate cleanser. And yeah, mafia stuff is so interesting to me, but I don't feel as bad when they get put away or killed, in the sense that this is the life they chose.
Yeah, because if you do these, it's not as traumatic because you could forget about it.
What murder?
Yeah, like, we already forgot about what murder.
What murder?
The best guy around.
Yeah,
that guy's still alive.
So I was listening.
He has like slick back white hair now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I was listening to a podcast with John Gotti Jr. And it's really interesting to hear his perspective. He got into a lot of trouble, and after his dad got put away, he stayed as, a big part of the mob for a while. But then the mob kind of got dismantled. He was in a lot of criminal activity. And the guy who is now the councilman for Englishtown, New Jersey, John Gotti. Have you heard of him? He just became a council member.
Oh, yeah.
So
Englishtown is where the closest racetrack to New York City. So people go there to race their cars.
Well, John Gotti is a Albanian guy who used to work for the Gambino family. And he worked under John Gotti Jr. And he flipped. And he ended up... during John Gotti Jr.'s trial, he flipped. And he murdered a lot of guys, too, and he admitted to it. And now he's a councilman for Englishtown, New Jersey. He just got elected. So.
But now what happens if they, charge him for some murders? You never know.
No, he cut a deal back in the day.
Oh, he cut a deal?
He cut a deal back in the day.
Wow.
He became an FBI informant. He cut a deal with the government. And he's good now. He's It's funny, the headlines were like, he used to break the law and now he makes the law.
I am the law. Like Judge Dredd.
I was listening to this podcast with John Gotti Jr. He was talking about, his times with his dad. And he also was saying that Sammy shouldn't be alive today.
Well, Sammy is alive, and so are you. So that would be your responsibility.
Well, John Gotti Jr. already did time, so I don't think he wants to go back.
I know, but someone saying that he shouldn't be alive,
Mm-hmm.
and if that's your dad,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that's your job, but I guess sometimes people are taking Italians' jobs. Like, I don't know. Like, that's like for you to say that, who are you wanting to do this?
To carry it out, yeah. I think he thinks that at the time that it happened, that the guys under Gotti should have stepped up and taken care of that.
But he's
they
the
didn't.
son. He's the son.
Yeah.
I don't think he should go do it. I mean, Sammy's going to be dead soon anyway.
He's in his 70s now, I think.
Yeah, he's old as shit.
Yeah, he's not that old. He's in his 70s. He's still probably got another 20 years.
Most men don't live to 90s.
No, that's true. Maybe another 10.
I mean, if you make it to 80 as a man, you made it.
I don't know. Nowadays, longevity is we're doing better with longevity as long as you take care of yourself early.
I guess, but I also saw this thing earlier that cats' lives have more than doubled since we have modern medicine. They used to only live 7 to 9 years.
Wow.
And now with modern medicine, I actually saw this right before we started recording today, that many cats are living to 20 years old now.
Wow.
With regular checkups.
I wish they would do that for doggies. Are they doing the same thing for dogs?
Biggie made it to 13 as a bulldog.
Biggie did make it to 13, true.
Lucy's 12.
Lucy is 12.
She's about to be 13 very soon.
Yeah, she'll be 13 this year. We don't know her exact birthday.
At the bare minimum, she's about to be 13.
Yeah.
We think we got her when she was about a year.
Yeah. We always just celebrated Lucy's birthday on Biggie's birthday, which is May 26th, which is in a couple days.
Oh, shit. Lucy's going to be 13, and she's still doing all right.
She is. So, well, that was the case of John Gotti. Do you feel like you learned a lot?
Yeah,
Did you know any of the stuff?
I did not, because I was very young, and I remember, you see things, you go in the store to get your candy, he's always on the front page.
Yeah.
But you don't really know what's going on, especially in my life. Like, we're just trying to get little 50 cents to get some Swiss rolls or something. You know?
Yeah, you were young at the time.
Yeah, you get a quart of water and a Swiss roll. And for people that aren't from New York, quart of water is actually a juice.
Yep.
And it's small, and it depends, and it's a color. So, like, there were no flavors. You get a red one, a purple one, a green one, an orange. You don't say I'm going to get a cherry one.
Yeah, we did not call it quarter waters here.
Or quarter juice, or whatever you call it.
But
I don't even know why I'm talking about that.
Yeah, so you don't, even though you were alive during this time, you don't really remember or knew all the details, which is good because I like when I get to teach you stuff.
Yeah, but I knew about Sammy the Bull.
Yeah. Did you know he was?
Rat.
Did you know he was considered a rat?
Yeah, I watched a lot of it actually on YouTube, and how he didn't consider himself a rat because they're planning
Gotti turned on him first.
Yeah, because they turned on him first, so he was
saving himself in his eyes.
Yeah,
which that's what Gotti was gonna do. So like, here's the thing: they all, omerta is the code of silence pretty much that the mob has,
but it's not real.
But it's not real, clearly,
because people tell. Now there are probably some people in there that actually stand by this code.
So it's funny that he doesn't consider himself a rat, but he was doing exactly what Gotti was about to do to him. It's interesting. Self-preservation. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning back in. We will catch you next time. Check us out on Instagram at Wife of Crime Pod, Facebook at Wife of Crime, The Crime Family, and Patreon at Wife of Crime Pod.
And you always forget wifeofcrime.com
for the merch.
For the merch. And we will be having some new merch coming, right, Jade?
Yes, Jade is currently working on it. So new merch will be coming soon. I'm excited about the new merch, actually. I'm super excited. So Jade's going to keep us posted on her progress. And we'll
get to work, woman.
She has her own business to run, too. So
we're chilling over here.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
May your week treat you as well as you treat your animals.
Oh, new one.